Hello, welcome to today's CUGC User Share webinar. My name is Stephanie Boozer. I'm with CUGC HQ, and I am happy to welcome you to today's webinar. It's the last webinar of 2018, and I am so happy to have Sacha and René on with us today to close out the year. We've had a great year of user share webinars and connects, and I'm really proud of everything that we've put out there webinar-wise this year. But before I hand things over, just want to let you know who's on our call with us today. Sacha Thomet is a CTP, and he's a member of CUGC Steering Committee, and he is a leader of the Swiss CUGC local group. And René Bigler is a CTA, and also a leader of the Swiss CUGC. And I think he just recently joined this leadership team in Switzerland, so we're happy to have him on board out there. I know he's presented a few times locally, so I'm glad to have him on a webinar with us today. And with that, I'm going to hand things over. Oh, actually, one more detail. If you have questions, please do type those into the question panel. Sacha and René are going to keep an eye on those during the presentation, and we're going to save most of those for the end. They may take a couple throughout, but the majority of them will save to the end, and we'll try to get to all of your questions today. If for some reason we don't get to all of the questions today, we'll take those offline, and I will create a forum thread at mycugc.org, and Sacha and René will post the answers out there, and you'll receive a link to that forum thread along with a link to today's recording and the slide deck tomorrow. All right, so with that, I'm going to pass things over to Sacha and René, and they're going to tell you a little bit more about themselves and get us going. So Sacha, I am sending you the screen right now.
Yeah, hello. Welcome also from our side, from Switzerland. It's cold and rainy outside, and we will now show you some experience about Windows 10. And yeah, we will start first. We will show you some steps of our journey. And first, we do a short intro, and we will show you during the presentation technical stuff, what we find out in our last years with Windows 10, and at the end, we will show you the do's and don'ts when you make a Windows 10 implementation at your site or a migration, some tips and tricks, what we have for you. Some information about me. Stephanie has already said, my name is Sacha Thomet, and I'm living near Bern, the capital of Switzerland, and I'm working in Bern at an insurance company called Immobiliar, and I'm working here now for 4 years. And before I was on an IT service provider working. And since 2015, I lead here in Switzerland the CUGC, the Swiss CUGC. And yeah, I think I can short hand over to René, so he can introduce himself.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to our webinar. Thank you very much for attending our webinar. My name is René Bigler. I work actually for a school, a public school in Switzerland. So I'm a system engineer in the educational sector, working or focusing on the whole EUC computing topics in general, Citrix technologies in particular, including a variety of hardware and software related technologies such as Nutanix, HCI, iChills clients, Fastlogix solutions, etc. I try to blog sometimes on my personal blog, tweet when I find the time. I'm, as Stephanie told you already, I'm a CTA and NTC as well.
Thank you, René. So My first presentation about Windows 10 I had already in 2016. It was at E2EVC in Rome. And before I had this presentation, I want to know how many are out there and have not yet migrated to Windows 10, or how many has migrated already to Windows 10. And so I asked here in this poll in Twitter, and then I see, okay, we have now 1 year, the Windows 10 is out of the market, and we have just 20% or not 20% who has already done the upgrade. Okay, I was in Rome. I presented my first thoughts about Windows 10. Then I had the second presentation in April 2017. And I asked the same in Twitter, and I was a bit surprised. Only 22% has already upgraded to Windows 10. Okay, so we had it again in Switzerland at the Citrix Day of DigiComp, a local computer education center. And then, okay, 44% have already done the Windows 10 upgrade. But I think there are still some people interested on our information or our experience with Windows 10. And so I want to ask now, Stephanie, to start the poll for you. What is your situation? Did you have already migrated to Windows 10, or are you currently doing that, or do you have planned an upgrade? I just speak about the upgrade to Windows 10, not for an upgrade from Windows 10 version to another version. So if you are on Windows 7 or Windows XP, so please say you have planned. I hope you have planned and you don't want to stay on Windows 7. Okay.
Can we see the results?
We can see the results, and I see there are now about 30% who have not yet done that. So the most of the people inside the call are currently doing that. Okay, I think we can go to the next slide. We see that it's important that we share our information, because there are still people outside there who are not migrated and they have bad logon times, so 2 minutes and 10 second black screen issues, etc. So that we had also at the beginning, but later we fixed that, and we want to show you how to fix that. So we want to avoid this kind of Twitter tweets that people saying they have problem with Windows 10. So here I have another numbers about how many people are already doing Windows 10. This is a slide which we have received or which is from the VDI like a Pro team, some other EUC community rock stars, which make presentation and get information about how it's out there and how people are using Windows 10 and other things. So we can see today Windows 10 is really number one. It has surpassed the Windows 7, but when we go deeper there, and we have another slide from the VDI like a Pro team, we see the moment when Windows 10 has surpassed Windows 7 is not very long time ago. So it's something in the end of 2018, so some days or weeks ago. Okay, now some technical parameters about the company I'm working for, the Mobiliar, or why we are doing Windows 10 on VDIs. So we are 4,500 employees here in Switzerland. We are for Switzerland a big insurance company, and we have every permanent employee has a laptop computer, and just contractors are really they need the VDI to work with their bring your own device to access the company infrastructure. So we are here in a bit luxury situation that everybody has a laptop, but I, as a Citrix engineer, try to go more and more in the direction that people have the freedom to use a VDI, and maybe they don't want to use anymore their laptop computer. So we have three flavors of VDIs what we use with Windows 10. One is a pooled VDI with Citrix provisioning server, and everybody of the company has access to it. So everybody can start a so-called office worker, where he has access to Outlook and most used applications of the company. Then we have some users who has a special need, who must install applications. For them, we provide a dedicated persistent virtual Windows 10 desktop. And they can also choose other type of hardware or virtual hardware specification like CPUs, memory, or even now very new is the possibility to have a desktop with a GPU with a graphical processor. And then we also have some users or all the IT staff who need to access and administrate backends. They have an administrative VDI to access the backend servers. Sorry for that. And they have special configured that they only can access with smart card and have special firewall set up. And so we already started very early with Windows 10. So when I come to this company in 2014, they decided just to go to Windows 8. That never happened because they changed their mind and they said, okay, we go to Windows 10 directly. But then we are a bit under pressure, so we started with the Windows 10 rollout on the laptops, and we also had the pressure to do it on the virtual on the VDIs. I think one milestone is that we was already in April 2016 with our first Windows 10 deployment on dedicated and pooled VDIs out. And then, yeah, it was an evolution process, but I think the last big step was just some weeks ago when we integrated also GPUs for our pooled VDIs. So they have now I would say, sometimes the better user experience on a VDI than on their physical desktop when they don't have a very powerful physical desktop or bring your own device or so. And for the future, we will look to move from VMware ES6 to Nutanix and maybe consider also some workloads to the cloud. So this was our way to do Windows 10. And for the next slide, I think I give to René, and he can tell you his story or story of his company.
Thank you, Sacha. Here you can see some facts and figures about our school. We have about 3,500 students, 350 faculty staff members. We operate about 500 school-owned and managed by us clients, thin clients as well as traditional fat clients. We do also actively support our users, especially students and faculty members, to bring their own devices. So we have a BYOD concept in place. As a school, we make heavy use of Office 365 because we get it for free from Microsoft. That's a big bonus we have as an educational institution. It's our main platform for communication and collaboration tools. So what we're doing, actually, we try to, or we do transitioning from traditional fat clients to thin clients whenever this is possible. We have still fat clients, company-owned fat clients, but more and more we're moving on to a thin client base. We run in our Citrix environment 200 pooled virtual Windows 10 desktops, so we don't have any persistent desktops up and running, but we also use published apps on Windows Server 2016 and publish them into the non-persistent virtual Windows 10 VDIs. Actually, we have upgraded last week to Citrix Virtual Apps and Desktop 7.18.11. So fingers crossed, but everything worked great. We're running our whole infrastructure, Citrix, as well as all the other backend services on the Nutanix platform. So our journey with Windows 10 started quite some years ago. We started with moving away from Windows 7 back in 2014-15, when nobody talked about Windows 10 yet. We made our first steps with Windows 8 and Windows 8.1. Yes, you're right. Looking back, we probably could have ignored Windows 8 and 8.1, but both of them have not been really great operating systems to run on VDI, in my opinion. However, it helped us to gain some experience with the new start menu layout questions and things, and those shiny new modern UWP apps. In 2016, we started our first testing with Windows 10 Virtual Desktop, and also started to look into Citrix VM Workspace environment management when it became available after the Northscale acquisition. At the same time, we also did our first POC with NVIDIA Grid GPUs on Xen server back in those days. In July 2017, after a merger of two schools, we built a new Citrix environment on the green field to provide non-persistent pooled virtual Windows 10 desktops to our user base. After our lessons we learned with the whole start menu and UWP mess, we wanted to have a stable, performant VDI again, and opted for Windows 10 LTSB. Knowing this wasn't what Microsoft thinks you should do. However, it wasn't a bad decision in my opinion, and it served us well until today. But actually now these days we're looking to rebuild our master images for the future, and of course are evaluating semi-annual channel versus long-time service channel. Well, I skipped that, and let's move on. One of your first questions probably when you're thinking about a move to Windows 10 should be, well, which Windows 10? Microsoft didn't make it easy for us to answer this question. They made quite some name changes in the past, especially with the naming of their servicing options. They started back in the first days with the terms current branch for business, and long-time servicing branch. They renamed those channels to semi-annual channel pilot, semi-annual channel broad, and LTSB stayed the same term. But the terms of today are semi-annual channel targeted for the former current branch, just semi-annual channel for the former current for business branch, and LTSC, long-term servicing channel for the former LTSB. So the naming by year and month of the releases themselves got quite common these days, and have been adopted by a lot of other vendors too. Also, Citrix switched to this naming convention, starting with Citrix Virtual Apps and Desktops 18.08 and the latest 18.11. Here you can see an overview of the Windows 10 version history with the relating code names, marketing names, and support timeframes. Every release brought new features, some changes under the hood as well, often leading to issues with third-party tools. Probably one of the biggest pain points of the past was the start menu mess caused by multiple changes, how the start menu is handled in all those different releases. You might have heard of this problem, which, for example, caused issues with Citrix UPM profile management a few times. So, Stephanie, we have another poll and would like to know for all those of you that have already migrated, which Windows 10 version did you pick?
So during you make this poll, I can maybe say somebody has asked a question, a very good question. He is currently on Windows 7 and want to migrate to Windows 10, and he asked if users can use their Windows 7 profile and it will be migrated to Windows 10. My opinion is don't do that. I think it will maybe first look how it would work, but in reality it won't, and you will get in trouble. So if you are on Windows 7 and migrate to Windows 10, make greenfield new profiles.
Yeah, it can even get difficult when moving from one Windows 10 release to another one, because often those new releases have new versions of the profile level as well. So we have the results. 1803 seems to be the mostly adopted build actually out there in the field, followed by 1703 or 1709. I think that's what you're on as well, Sacha, if I remember correctly.
We are currently on 1803.
03, so on the number one. Thank you very much. So an interesting thing is we heard at last Ignite from Microsoft at their Ignite conference. They got the pain points of moving from one release to another one in a quite short time frame, and they announced a new lifecycle term. So on Windows 10 Enterprise and Windows 10 Education, the fall releases in September are now serviced for 30 months from the release date. So that's a big plus in my opinion, and gives us quite some time for the future. The guys from Login VSI have done a nice graphical overview to show you this new 13-month support, starting officially with 1809. The first fall release getting this 30-month support. Also the last three releases starting of 1703, 1709 and 1803 got this extended support announced at Microsoft Ignite, but for the future only the fall releases will get this extended support time frame. Personally, I think this is a good move and really helps companies with their transition from Windows 7 to Windows 10, and it's probably also very welcomed by all the third-party vendors which need to make sure their products are compatible with new Windows 10 releases. It gives everybody time and slows down the whole life cycle thing, I think. Even Microsoft tells us that extensive advanced testing isn't required anymore because app compatibility is outstanding with Windows 10. my personal experience in the past didn't reflect this always, especially when it comes to software deeply integrating with the operating system. These vendors often have to make some changes on their part as well and release a new version to support the new Windows 10 release. I think we have a tweet showing this as well from Patrick, telling us that Windows build upgrade with 30 months is a cool thing, but now we have to do it every 30 months. Another big announcement that Microsoft Ignite has been announced the Windows Virtual Desktop service. Basically, it's the availability of a new desktop as a service offering based on their remote desktop modern infrastructures. We have heard a lot of over the last months. Microsoft wants to offer a desktop as a service offering where they manage the control plane and you run the VMs. So it sounds a bit like a Citrix virtual apps and desktop service. Well, let's have a look at some of the details of this upcoming offering. One thing to point out, to note, is Microsoft announced Windows Virtual Desktop and remote apps are delivered from the cloud. And when Microsoft is talking about cloud, they're talking about Azure. So Windows Virtual Desktop offering will be an Azure-only offering. It will be bundled as well with the release of the new Windows 10 Enterprise Multi-User Edition. We heard something for this, about this. It will be a free offering for existing Microsoft 365 customers. So a free offering is not really true. What's free is the management infrastructure. So you have to pay only for the asset consumption of the VMs. Well, back to Citrix now. Let's have a look at, no, not yet at different supported releases, but Citrix announced also after Microsoft Ignite, they will build a Citrix desktop as a service offering on top of Microsoft Windows Virtual Desktops. So there's a blog post out there on blogs.citrix.com. You have some details in there, but everything is still quite unconfirmed. There's also not yet a public preview out there, neither from Citrix, neither from Microsoft. Microsoft has announced it will be available later this year, so they have about 13 days now left to release this public preview. So let's go back to Citrix now. Citrix tells us also something about the Windows 10 releases they support. Depending on your Citrix backend, if you have a look at this slide, what we can say, you probably have to be at least on 7.15 if you plan to go to Windows 10. So basically for newer Windows builds, maybe you need to be on newer Citrix virtual apps and desktop releases as well. Keep in mind that only the current branch for business, today's semi-annual channel and LTSB releases are officially supported. No insider previews. Also, with every new release, Microsoft declares the first phase of about 4 months as semi-annual channel targeted, the former current branch, followed by an official declaration of moving on to production-ready state for business, called just a semi-annual channel, the former current branch for business. They do this based on their telemetry data and feedback from customers. So if Microsoft releases a new build, 1809, for example, this release will not be supported until it reaches semi-annual channel status, because usually there are some issues with the Citrix stack. These issues, and if available, some possible workarounds are published in a separate support article. I think on the next slide we have a screenshot of this. So, for example, for the latest Windows 10 release, 1809, the Windows 10 October release, Citrix lists 9 known issues at this time, and they have also some workarounds ready for this latest release. But I think it's a good thing to start testing now, but to go in production, I definitely would recommend to wait until 1809 will reach semi-annual channel status, probably in spring sometimes. With this, I hand it over back to Sacha. Are you still awake, Sacha?
Yeah, I'm awake. I answered some questions during your speaking. So yeah, how we started, we already gave you some information and a bunch of information about Windows 10 and all about that. Maybe already too much information, but you will able to download the slides later, and then you can go and see what articles we are referring to and so on. So operating system migration. Yeah, just insert the new ISO or attach the new ISO file and install it, and you are fine. Not your reality, we know. But I tried, and then with the same virtual hardware on which I was running Windows 7, I just installed Windows 10, and the result was that I had, for example, just already the logon time has increased by 2.5 instead of 1 minute, which is already not great. We had 2.5 minutes or 152 seconds logon time. Not really nice. Then we added 2 virtual CPUs, 4 gigs of memory, updated to the new Citrix VDI, done some registry hacks and tuning, and after that the logon time was already much better. You can see on this graphic now, we tried a long time with just the same hardware. Honestly, we had still Windows 7 and Windows 10 to use, so the users can decide if they want to wait long for the login and use Windows 10, or if they want to use still Windows 7. But then in end of September, we changed that, and we had the blue line, what you can see, which is going down. The logon time increased, and it was much better. Yeah, logon time is always a key indicator how good an environment is running. When I spoke with René about it, he told me he has only 30 seconds logon time. I think that's a good number, but we was not able first to have so a good logon time, and then I asked why is René so much better than my environment. Okay, he used the LTSBs, but that cannot be the change. But then I found out René has a bit cheated. So he don't use login scripts, and he has reduced the GPOs. Yeah, how to do that? I think you have to do some things in the login script. You have to have the GPOs. So how he has done that? It was with the Citrix Workspace Environment Manager, he has installed, and he was able to put a lot of stuff from the login scripts and from the GPUs into WEM. He will tell more about the WEM later. So when I mentioned logon script, when I mentioned logon time, I said we had at the end in 2016 we had about a minute, and then I had this 1 minute or the 57 seconds in director, but we also use Uber agent to measure where we have how long for what. And when I go to see the same login, it's 43 minutes. Okay, a bit confusing. But when I take a real stopwatch and have to see the logon time, okay, it's also about 60 seconds. So there is some difference in the different way to measure the logon time. And I would say Uber agent cannot get all the data because the brokering, for example, he cannot see and director can see that. And when you have other ways to measure, you also will get other times. So my advice for this is just to see how it's a good indicator to have the logon times in the Citrix director or in Uber agent, but to see the real logon time, go take a stopwatch, click on the desktop, what you want to launch, the VDI desktop, and see when you can start to work actually. And then you can see what is really the logon time, and then you see the difference from the tool what you use for measurement and for the real user behavior. That about logon time. Sizing is always a question. So when somebody talks with me about the Windows 10 migration, he asks, yeah, how many RAM, how many vCPUs do you use? And our recommendation you can see here. And I think it's also very different. It depends about what you are doing with your VDI or which programs are you using, how many memory it consumes. What is interesting on this slide, we started with the dedicated VDI with 4 vCPUs and 4 gig of RAM, and we was happy. And then we migrated to Windows 10 1803, and we saw that we always has too less RAM, and so we upgraded to 8 gig of memory for our VDIs, for our VMs below the VDI. René has the pretty similar number what we have, but out there are also recommendation. For example, from Dan Feller, he split the workload to a light, medium, and heavy, and give out some recommendation. There is really no one number who is the correct number. You have to find out what is for your case the right case. This is just some indicator where you can see what will probably work. Also very interesting in that is I got a slide from Mark Plettenberg from Login VSI, and he done this tests how many users he can get on one server. And on this test which he has done with Login VSI and which has this indicator VSI Max, we can see that it depends from Windows version to Windows version how many users you can bring on a single physical server. And you can see at least when 1803 came out, the number is going down. You can get some information about that also on the blog from Login VSI, and they have a lot of reports about performance and numbers. I don't take so many here inside. I think just this 1 or 2 slides are very interesting, that you can see probably every new Windows version has more services, has more performance, is more hungry for performance for CPU and for memory. Also very interesting here is that with 1809, the green line is the 1809 with no OneDrive, and the blue line is 1809 with OneDrive, and the performance is really on top of the other Windows version. So our advice for this is read the white papers, read the blogs of the people who are doing migrations or who are advise what to do, and compare the different white papers, and also consider the performance impact of the different Windows versions and updates. And then go and do your own measurement. Also do optimization. More about optimization you can read later. So now a bit deeper in the technical stuff, maybe also some bad things we've done in our company. So first we started with the upgrade to Windows 10, but we don't upgraded all the systems in our environment. So we still had a share for user profiles, which was on SMP2 protocol. And what you can see here in this graphic, it was from I've done that with Uber Agent. You can see here the logon times, and what you can see, the orange stack is the profile loading, and we have until here in this box we had a much higher profile loading times than after that. What happens in this place here? We just upgraded our file server to a SMP3 able file server, and then the profile loading time was really reduced in a very big number. Also, what I've done, there is an article in the support forums from Citrix that when you install VMware tools, so we have VMware as a hypervisor on our VDI currently, and when you install VMware tools, you can, it was a best practice to not use the graphic driver of the VMware tools for VDIs, that you keep that out. And when I installed that, I had the problem that the user profile never was written back to the file server. And when I was going after some hours of troubleshooting to the console, I saw that all is running fine, but when I log off, the computer goes to a blue screen, and the computer was not able to write back the user profile, what is very bad because all the changes in the profile are not saved. Yeah, advice for here, not all the best practice what you know from the past are still valid. Not just we have learned, also Citrix and Microsoft has learned. Very good news is that with Citrix virtual apps and desktops 18.11, the disconnect in the start menu comes back. So when you have a computer with no possibility to go to this desktop viewer, for example, a thin client, and you want to disconnect on a Windows 10, you have to open a command prompt and put in TS disconnect, or to how like we've done that, to put this in a shortcut on the desktop or in the start menu. Now this is finally solved with the newest virtual apps and desktop release from Citrix. Also, what's a topic with Windows 10 is this DPI setting. So we had strange behaviors that the mouse pointer was on some clients, so some workstations very small, or blurry desktops and apps, or apps which appears just in a post stamp size. With the Citrix Receiver 410, it was better, or it's better because you can scale the resolution. So, but this is a very long story, and for this problem, I suggest that you read this blog article, which is about the resolution, because it's not so easy to understand the whole history. I was already asked in the question section today from someone who is here in the webinar if we are doing in-place upgrades or if we are doing install from scratch. So with the pool desktop, we are doing from scratch a new installation with every new release what we are going. But for the dedicated desktops where users are installing software and make their own configuration, they are not happy when we don't when we give them every half year or every year a new clean image. So we have to do an in-place upgrade from one version to the other. We've done this the first time, I think, from 15.11 to 16.07, and it was not easy. It was really not easy because we had seen in the past that it's not going well when you install a new Windows version, just a new Windows version, and you don't touch the Citrix component. So after each in-place upgrade of Windows, we have to reinstall the VDA. And the VDA is not so easy to install, or sometimes it goes wrong when you don't have a proper cleanup before. And the cleanup was not possible to do that unattended. So I wrote on my blog post how you can do that unattended. Honestly, this is already more than a year old, and I think today it's going much better. So I think the newest version of the VDA, it's doing well with just install over an older version. But honestly, I don't have all the newest information here because we've done that like I wrote it in the blog before. Okay, I think I hand over back to René about his technical stuff.
Thank you, Sacha. So you got a German slide. The last one was in German. Your last slide was in German. No worries.
Oh.
So Sacha showed you some numbers of Windows 10 when it comes to your users' logon times and IOPS. Every Windows 10 release brings a lot of new default UWP apps, services, scheduled tasks, etc. They might have a big impact, mostly a negative one, on logon times, profile size, storage resource consumption, etc. For quite a long time, VMware optimization tool, besides of manual tuning and optimization scripts, has been the only way to optimize your master images for the special needs in a virtual environment. But hey, last year we got an awesome tool from Citrix for this too. Citrix released the Citrix Optimizer. Citrix Optimizer is a free-to-use image optimization tool from Citrix for VDI and server-based deployments. Citrix Optimizer uses or is based on different templates depending on the OS you want to optimize, on the OS version you want to optimize. With the latest release of Citrix Optimizer 2.0, it has been released last Monday, so it's 2 days old, and I would recommend to everyone to download this awesome tool from Martin Sušek and his team and test it out. With this latest 2.0 release, Optimizer comes with built-in templates supported by Citrix, but you will be able to create your own templates with the GUI-based template builder and share them with the community through the template marketplace. That's the 2 new features we got with this new 2.0 release. As well, it comes with default templates for optimizing 1809 and server 2019. So definitely have a look at this tool. It's a great tool to make your logon times faster and performance better on your virtual desktops. Another tool that we have mentioned already is Citrix Workspace Environment Management, the VEM. There are mainly 2 major feature sets in this tool. The first one is the resource management part to provide the best experience for users. Workspace environment management monitors and analyzes user and application behavior in real time, then adjusts memory, CPU, and I/O in the user's workspace environment. So it's a agent-based solution. You have to install an agent in your master image, in your virtual desktop image, and this agent will handle this resource optimizations. The other part of them is the profile management part. It helps us you have seen with logon times, because you can get rid of a lot of your legacy logon scripts and GPO and GPP settings and replace them with push them out with Workspace environment management, and this definitely helps with your logon times and makes life easier and your desktops more performant. Okay, another tool that we use is the Fastlogix container solution. We use the Office 365 container solutions part of Fastlogix. As I have told you, we have Office 365 as our main communication and collaboration platform, and Office 365 containers helps you, especially on non-persistent VDIs, to get user experience that is the same as on persistent VDIs. So what can it do for you? It can enable you to keep the OST files from Outlook and run Exchange in cached mode. So that's a big thing. But Citrix is building this as well with the latest releases of UPM in a same way with redirecting the data in a VHD file and mounting this file on user logon. Another thing that Fastlogix can do is roaming your Outlook search and Windows search as well. And for us as a school, it's interesting also for OneDrive for Business use cases. So if your users sync their OneDrive data down to the non-persistent VDI, the data goes in this Office 365 containers and come back on a new VDI session as well. So what's new with Fastlogix? You might have heard it. It's Microsoft now. Microsoft has acquired Fastlogix, and we don't know yet how this will develop. Microsoft might offer these tools to its existing customers in some way as a subscription together with Office 365 or the new Windows Virtual Desktop offering. Nobody knows yet exactly. So things are open in this space, and it will be interesting to see what comes from Citrix or from Microsoft on this part. Maybe they also just take the technology and build them into their own stack. We will have to wait and see what will happen. Another thing that you might consider is the Citrix user layers with Citrix app layering is GA now, so that might be another approach to roam this cache and OST things between non-persistent VDI as well. So here some tips from my part about the GPO scripts especially. I would definitely recommend to keep GPOs and GPPs at the minimum. The less, the better. Reduce them, aggregate them. Then processing is faster when you target your GPOs, GPPs on the O level and not on Active Directory groups. So that might help with the improvement of logon times. Limit your drive and printer mappings to the minimum. Only map the printers and network drives your users really need. And consider migrating your GPOs, GPPs into Citrix Workspace environment management. That's another thing to consider when you're going to Windows 10. Something we stumbled in the beginning was the compatibility of print drivers with Windows 10. maybe things have become better now, but it was a really big pain point for us. We had a couple of print drivers from these big MFP vendors that slowed down our printer mappings, and logon times went up to 90 seconds and more. And logon scripts are a creation of the devil. Kill them with fire, as James Rankin probably would say. Profile management is another thing to think about. If you're doing pooled VDI, non-persistent VDI VMs, you need to rethink how you want to do your profile management. One thing for sure, the basic Microsoft roaming profile, that they are dead and not working really good anymore for Windows 10. So without a third-party profile management tool, you probably are lost. You can use Citrix user profile management. You can use other things like Fastlogix profile containers. Have a look at app layering, user layers, etc. But basic Microsoft roaming, I wouldn't recommend to them. Another thing to think about is hardware matters when you move to Windows 10. Have a look at all those devices where your users are running Windows 10 at home. They all have fast storage, some sort of flash storage. Every device, consumer device, has GPUs these days. So you can't expect to have the same user experience for your virtual desktops when you're building an outdated legacy hardware. Maybe it's the time to consider some software-defined storage solutions, hyper-converged solutions. Definitely, you need some storage solution that has SSDs, flash storage in it. Your legacy SAN might not be able to provide enough performance for Windows 10. And think about GPUs as well. In my experience, they are not mandatory, but they definitely help to increase your user density on your server backend, and they help also with the user experience. But this comes at a price, and the prices are still quite high these days. VDI Like a Pro has also done some questions about the GPUs people use in their VDI deployments. And as you can see on these results, it's about 50% that probably don't use GPUs, not yet, and the other ones are looking into or using some sort of GPUs in their solutions. When we have a look at the trends, we definitely can see that GPUs are a growing thing, that they are going up from year to year. So the future probably will be GPUs everywhere. And last thing from my side, think about your users. User experience is king. Don't underestimate your users' expectations. They want the same user experience, no matter if it's a physical or virtual desktop. They compare your virtual desktops with the experience they know from their personal endpoints at home. For the same reasons, be careful with optimizations and disabling services and features on your master images, like search index, and turning off Windows contents while dragging. It will not make your users happy, probably. If you go to Windows 10, think about Office 2. Providing a Windows 10 virtual desktop with Office 2010 is probably not a cool thing. And think about the compatibility of the whole ecosystem. like hardware drivers, applications, and all those things. So with that, I hand it back to Sacha to sum it up.
Yeah, I sum it up with the do's and don'ts, and we are already near at the end of the time, so I try to get a bit faster, but I think it's very important that we have this together. So what you should have learned in this presentation, don't use the Windows 10 Spring releases, because you have just too less time of support. If you use the fall releases, you have 30 months of support and you have more or less the upgrade freedom. Don't believe it would just work. Do test for application compatibility and performance. Don't use legacy stuff like old hardware or SMB2 file servers and so on, because it's just not working fine. And same is also applies to the best practice, which maybe the legacy things are not good enough, and try to avoid GP or GPP and use WEM instead. Also, one advice: don't trust any tool for the logon time measurement. They can be correct, but it's also maybe possible that you have a measurement tool what is not so correct, but it's still helpful. Don't say some tool is not good because it's not the actual logon time. It can still be very good to see what are the differences. Also, don't believe GPUs are only helpful for high-end graphics applications like CAD or some known applications for GPU. If you have the chance to integrate GPUs, do that if possible. You can discharge the CPUs and you can bring a higher user density on your hardware, and you have the better user experience. But I know it's a question of the money, and maybe it's not possible to give GPU. It's not necessary, but it helps. I personally don't think that VDI is dead. I don't want to say VDI next year is the year of the VDI, but I see some signs that VDI can be the future because of the multi-user Windows 10, which was released at Ignite, which is today just in Azure. And for example, that there is no support for Office 365 on Windows Server 2019. So for me, those are all signs that VDI can be the future, and maybe more than virtual apps. Also, one advice we give is don't optimize to that. When you use an optimizer and you turn off all the features, you probably have the highest number of users what you can get on a physical hardware, but the users will not be happy without the Windows search, for example. We try now also to answer questions from you, and then when we are done here, like Stephanie already said, we will have a post in the forum where we can you can put questions in and we try to answer, or maybe also other from the community tries to answer. And you can also send us, reach us via Twitter, and then we are able to answer you the questions. So we want now maybe to pick out some questions which came up here. And share the answer with all who are here. Here is one. Are either presenters utilizing Citrix Cloud? I don't use it yet. René, do you already use Citrix Cloud?
We're looking into it, but at this time it's still in some testing for us, and it's definitely a question of the pricing of the licensing, because as a school we run with concurrent licensing models at this moment, and when you go to Citrix Cloud you have to do 9 user licensing, and for 3,500 students that gets quite expensive.
Okay, we have another question. What model of card and how many users per card? So I think that's meaning the GPU. So I can say we at Demobiliar are currently using 4 physical hardware servers with each 2 of the NVIDIA M10 graphic cards, and so we are able today to deliver out with that profile. We are using 265 VDIs. What are you using for GPU, and what's the use case, René?
Initially, we did also some testing with the NVIDIA M10 that supports up to 32 users per card if you're doing the 1 gigabyte profile, and that's the profile you need to have for Windows 10. It was just a POC for us, and we couldn't afford to build our VDI solution with GPUs. But what we have done in our Nutanix platform, we have now GPU nodes as well with the M60 card, but we're using them for published applications like Adobe Creative Cloud and some CAD stuff. So no GPU on VDI for us because it was too expensive. I saw another interesting question from James Ranking with the new 30-month cycle. Do you think it's a move towards getting rid of LTSC altogether? Who knows? LTSC was never intended from Microsoft to run it on a desktop, user desktop computer that also runs Windows Office. They always told us LTSC or LTSB is only the thing to go on cash machines and all on medical equipment. We don't know. We did it. We started with LTSC, but now, as I told you, we're looking into rebuild probably with the next semi-annual channel release. But we're also looking into the latest LTSC 2019 that's based on 1809 as well. So I don't know the answer.
Maybe one other question, which is coming here about WEM and resource management. Do you use WEM resource management with Windows 10 MCS also? I'm not sure if you have already answered that, René.
I didn't answer it yet. Yes, we use the memory and CPU optimization thing with MCS on Nutanix Acropolis hypervisor. So it was just a matter of out of the box install for us and enabling the basic features, the auto scaling features and all those things. So it helps. Yeah, it's something that can definitely help. But the interesting part of WEM for us was to move away from a lot of GPPs and GPOs to accelerate user logon times.
Okay. Yeah, we have answered some questions. Some are still open, but please, we try to take this in this forum post, and if you have still other questions, don't be shy and put it in the forum post, and then we can also answer there if we have an answer. We don't have an answer on any question, I think.
Yeah. So thank you very much, everyone, for attending our webinar. We hope you got some new information from you and are looking forward to hearing from you, maybe in the forum, on Twitter, or live, wherever, whenever. With this from my side, Merry Christmas to everybody, and enjoy some time off, hopefully.
I don't have nothing to add. So thank you very much and have a good time.
Thank you. Thank you, Renee and Sacha, and thank you to all of you for attending today. And as they mentioned in the chat window, I put a link to the forum thread. That's where you can type any additional questions, and I will send anything over to Sacha and Renee that you put in there. Make sure they see them. And that's also where we'll post a link to the recording, but you will also get an email with a link to the recording tomorrow in case you need to revisit anything that you heard today. And also, finally, there's a link in the chat to a survey. It's short and anonymous, and we just like to get your feedback on all of our webinars. It helps us plan future content for CUGC. So please fill that out. And finally, follow us on Twitter at MyCUGC or use hashtag MyCUGC so we can find you when you post about us. And thank you again. Thank you, Sacha. Thank you, Renee. I hope you guys have a great holiday and a happy new year. And we're looking forward to an even better 2019. Everyone, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.